Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me on Thursday evening. I know that right now there's a conflict with the presidential debate in the U.S., so I am competing with definitely some heavy hitters right now. So uh, thanks if you've chosen to join me tonight. And what we're going to be talking about is project-based learning with Adobe Spark Post. So I chose to showcase Adobe this week for a couple of reasons. First, it's Adobe Max, which is actually going on right now as well, which is a big Adobe conference. And also just because I think that Adobe is a really great way to introduce authentic project-based learning. And I think particularly if we're in a fully remote teaching situation, coming up with new, thoughtful, engaging projects can really be a way to make sure that students are staying interested and engaged in learning when they don't have some of the other motivational factors that tend to motivate students when they're actually physically in school. So tonight we're going to look at 3 different projects that you can do with students using Adobe Spark Post. We're going to look at a graphic design project, we're going to look at a video project, and we're going to look at a web page project. And all of the links to those lesson plans are available in the video description. So you can take basically everything that I'm going to show in this live show, and you can modify it and use it however you'd like. So we're going to start just by talking a little bit about why I think it's a good idea to do project-based learning in general, and also why I think Adobe is a great program for that. So I already mentioned engagement as a really important element for project-based learning. And another reason why we should consider bringing in project-based learning is that it also just allows us to break down some of the barriers that might exist more traditionally between subjects to come up with some projects that can encompass some different subjects. And that's actually something that we have an ability to do now that we're kind of in this different situation. And it's something that we might not have been able to do in a more traditional classroom. So you can do these highly engaging interdisciplinary projects. And of course, you also, when you bring in a project like this, or like these projects that I'm going to show, are bringing in some really important, relevant 21st century skills. So we get to teach students creativity. We get to teach students how to do things with technology programs that have a real world application. And students understand that. So I'm excited to show you these programs. I love Adobe Spark Post. It's a huge hit with students. I use it personally myself as well. And I also use that as a way to invest students by showing them the work that I do personally using Adobe Spark Post. So it's a great program, and I definitely recommend that you check it out. I'm going to check right now in the chat. I would love to see whether or not people are already familiar with Adobe. So I'm just going to look here in the chat and see what familiarity we already have. All right, so it looks like there's a little bit of lag time. Yeah, some people are saying not familiar. Some people have used it before. Okay, so yeah, there's mixed familiarity. Another program that I do just want to throw out there that you could potentially use if you have difficulty accessing Adobe is Canva. Canva does have a lot of similar tools to Adobe Spark Post. So if you are not able to get the education version of Adobe Spark, you could also do a lot of the activities that I'm going to show you with Canva EDU. All right, and now I see, yeah, a lot. I know there's, sorry, a lag. I see a lot of different comments coming through. Some people using it, some people have not used it, but there is a decent amount of experience, so that's great. All right. So what we're going to do right now is start by looking at the way you can actually get a pro account with Adobe as an educator. And just want to let people know that if you have any questions, I'll basically try to answer those throughout the live show. So I'll put your question up, answer it as we're going. And if you don't get your question answered during the show, you can also stick around at the end and there will be a Q&A. And then lastly, I keep forgetting to mention this. Just a reminder that I have a live show now every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm also taking requests for different topics that you'd like to see covered. So those could be skills you'd like to see, lesson demos, program demos like tonight's show. So if you have any comments or any ideas about what you'd like to see, definitely let me know so I can plan a live show around that. And I also have a new publication schedule for my tutorials. So I'm putting out a new tutorial every Monday and Wednesday as well. So 3 videos coming out essentially on my channel every week. So look out for those. All right. So let's jump over here and we're going to take a look at how you can get yourself a free education account. This link is also in the video description, so it'll take you directly here. And I'm not going to go over this in great detail, but I just want to point out that basically what you can do is request that you get an Adobe education account, and you have to go through a couple of steps in order to get it. But once you get it, then you can essentially have full access to Adobe, the premium version of Adobe Spark Post. And you can also set it up for students. This is entirely free. You don't need to pay for it as an educator, which is great. The downside is that, like I said, there are a few steps you have to jump through. You will likely need to get an administrator involved just because they have to set up the emails that students are going to use. So there are a couple of hurdles involved with getting it, but to me, it's worth it. So I definitely recommend that you make the extra effort to go out and advocate for getting it for your students. You have to do a couple of things, but you and your students are definitely going to like it. So after you have gotten an account, once you get in, the Adobe portal, Adobe Spark Post portal, looks like this. And you can access this actually totally for free. So you could set up a free account. It's just going to be like a typical free account where you wouldn't have certain access to some of the images, some of the templates, things like that. If a student tries to set up an account totally for free, it's going to ask them to put in their age. There's certain age restrictions, and that's all for privacy and protection and things like that. But you could hypothetically use it totally for free. Okay, so when you get into Adobe Spark Post, on the top left-hand corner, you'll see this blue plus button. And here are just a few of the different options that you have for the types of media that you can create in Adobe Spark Post. Really, there are 3 main types of media. So you can create graphic designs, you can create videos, and you can create web pages. So we're going to start with looking at a graphic design project. And when I do a graphic design project with students, what I like to do here is show students some examples of ideal student work before we get started. So I like to do this just as a way to invest students, to show them what the work could potentially look like. I kind of have a thing about not allowing students to see these for the whole time we're doing a project, just because I really want to encourage that they're doing something unique and creative. But I do like to show it to them up front so that they can see, okay, I have a general sense of what I could create. So these are actual examples of graphic designs that my students created using Adobe Spark Post. And this was for a Genius Hour project that students did for Black History Month, where they essentially got to choose any prominent African-American person currently living or in history that they could study and then make a graphic design about and also write a blurb about. So these were published on our class website, And the only thing that you can't see here is the writing. So they did also include a piece of writing along with this graphic design. And then I also like to show students, because it's Adobe, and like I mentioned, because I use Adobe, I like to show them what I personally do with Adobe as well, just as a way to not only invest them in the project and the content that we're doing, but also invest them in the tech program, invest them in why they would want to learn about graphic design. So obviously I know a lot of folks out there are not necessarily doing graphic design, but what you could point out to them is, hey, Instagram stories, Facebook banners, YouTube thumbnails for the majority of people you watch on YouTube. A lot of creators out there create that kind of stuff in Adobe Spark Post. So these are my actual YouTube thumbnails and also some Pinterest images that I make in Adobe Spark Post. And just want to pause here for a moment to give a huge shout out to Claudio Zavala Jr., who showed me how to do this actually. And he has a separate YouTube channel all about Adobe X. It's awesome. Adobe products. And it's a great channel to learn about all the different programs and how you could use them. So I put the link for that in the video description below so that you can check out his channel. And thanks, Claudio, for showing me how to use this. So this is another way that I invest students. I show them some examples of student work, show them how a professional might use it. And what I'm going to show you now is a project that you could potentially do with students next month. So I love doing these graphic design projects as kind of these Genius Hour, independent study type projects. And I often use them thematically for the different months that have heritage months for different groups of people. So next month is Native American Heritage Month. And so I put together this graphic organizer. It's essentially a hyperdoc that you could use to have students study either a person or a group of people related to Native American Heritage Month. So what students will do, and I'm not going to go through this in great depth here, but I'll just walk through it briefly. Students are basically going to be researching some different information about a person that they're studying. They're going to apply some skills. So I'll have them learn about paraphrasing and direct quoting so that they can still be applying some skills. And that's really where some of that interdisciplinary element comes in as well. And then they will also be composing an informational paragraph about whoever they studied, publishing that writing, and then, of course, creating a graphic design to show what they learned. And the essential question, of course, you could change it if you were actually using it here with students that I have, is why is it important to study Native American Heritage Month? So what we're going to do for the engage phase of this lesson is have students make connections, access prior knowledge, so they can start with, just kind of doing some word breakdowns, what it means to be a Native person, what they already know about Native American culture. You can, since they're going to be studying people or groups of people or an individual person, you could see what they already know about a person of Native American descent if they know anyone that they can name now. Also, just any ideas about what they might want to say about their topic, what they might want to study. And since the question is why is Native American heritage important, we can start by asking them to state right now why they think it's important, and then also reflect after they've done that learning on how that might have changed. And then lastly here, we'll have them answer something about what they hope to learn during this project. Now, during the Explore Explain phase, I have this designed to be relatively open-ended. This first part is a mini lesson where students are going to go to some external websites. They're going to watch a vocabulary video about paraphrasing. They'll watch this other video that is through Edpuzzle about integrating direct quotes. And then they'll record something that they learned, give an example, and then describe how to paraphrase by actually paraphrasing, and then describe how to do a direct quote by using a direct quote from that video. Now, the purpose of this is so that they can actually apply this skill later when they're doing the research. So this is something I show this a lot in my materials. You could do this over and over and over again. I think students kind of can't get enough out of practicing paraphrasing and integrating direct quotes. So you could definitely use this many times. All right, so the way that I've set this graphic organizer up is a pseudo menu board. These are a bunch of different resources where students could go. The first is an article on Actively Learn called Don't Pass Me By about Native American identity. The next is a website actually for you to check out with just a lot of different source material about Native American Heritage Month. And then I have other places like Biography, Britannica, PBS, and there's a video that the University of Oregon put out as well called A Conversation About Native American Heritage Month. So these are all just potential resources that you could use to have students go to learn some different information. Some of them are going to be more generic, and then some will actually get into studying some particular historical figures or famous people if they're going to go that route. So that would be something like biography.com. And then for the research notes, what students will be doing is just answering some different questions that pertain to the person or people that they studied. And then here is where they'll actually be applying that skill that they just learned of paraphrasing and direct quoting. So I won't go through these questions in detail, but you could obviously check them out and edit them if you would like. Now at the bottom, you'll see that I'm prepping students to start to come up with some information that they would include on their graphic. So one is that they would come up with 3 words that would describe the person or the group of people that they are studying. Another is to find a quote that's attributed to that person or group of people, and that's something that they could include on their graphic. And then circling back to that question about what they learned about Native American identity, why it's important to study Native American Heritage Month. And then for the elaborate phase of this lesson, students will be doing a piece of writing that could be published with their graphic. And then, of course, they're going to design a graphic. So here we'll have them watch a tutorial. I didn't actually link to a tutorial. You could make one. That would actually probably be the best thing to do, make your own. And then when they go to Adobe, I'm going to give them some particular criteria that they need to use when they're making their graphic. So that would be to include an image. They might need to include, I want them to include descriptive adjectives, an important quote, and then any other relevant information. And of course, this is something that you could just come up with on your own or modify however you'd like. And then after they make that graphic, I'll have them put it back on this graphic organizer and then turn this whole HyperDoc in through Google Classroom so that I have access to the published link. And then what I can do is download it and put it up on a class website if you have something like that. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is how to actually design one of these in Adobe. So did not mean to actually go to the graphic yet. Okay, so when we're in Adobe, you'll see that again at the top, there's that blue plus button. And here you can either choose a graphic. Most of these are already going to be graphics like a Facebook post, or you can just direct students to go here to view all. And then you'll see that the 3 main media types are up top. You can also just stay on this all tab, and really it doesn't matter that much what size graphic you use. If you want to publish them, in a place like Padlet, have them put them up in Padlet, the square ones tend to be better. You can also potentially use the smaller like Facebook thumbnail size images, or I'm sorry, the YouTube thumbnail size images. Those will also tend to show the whole image and not get cut off. But of course, there's collages and flyer sizes and things like that too. So I'm going to just go here to social graphic. And then you'll see that this is a template that students would start with. And there are other templates over here on the right-hand side that students could choose from. You can show students templates. I don't tend to use templates all that much, but if they want to kind of get a sense of what's possible, what they can do, then you might want to show them some templates. So what I'm going to do here is actually just delete everything, and I'm basically just going to start from scratch. So here you'll see that basically I'm starting from a color background, and I could, if I wanted to, and I actually think this is a pretty good idea for this type of project, change the layout so that you have a different type of layout where you could put maybe an image of the person. You could put an image of the place that represents them, something like that, and then have some text in another place. So this is just an easy way to organize information here. So what you can do is go here, and you'll see when I click on a cell, I can change the background color. But what I'm actually going to do is add an image. So if you go here to the add button, you'll see some of the different types of media that you can add. I'm going to go here to add photo. And you can either look for photos through either Unsplash or Pixabay. You'll see I already looked for one here from Ohio. And the benefit of using Pixabay or Unsplash is that you can get those images for without worrying about copyright. And you can also, if you have Adobe Stock, get images from Adobe Stock. Now, you also have the option of uploading pictures from your computer. So oftentimes when you do a project like this, if you are studying a person, oftentimes these websites won't have the person that you're looking for. So you may need to pull a picture in. So in this case, I am going to bring in a picture just to show you an example here. So we're just going to say that I had picked to study Tecumseh, and then what I can do after I've brought that image in is either pin it to the background or move it freely. So here I'm going to pin it to the background, and the reason why I want to do that is so it basically sticks in one of the boxes. If you choose to move it freely, then you're just going to have more options for how you can totally manipulate the image and move it all around. So once the image uploads here, then I can go and I can do whatever else that I want to do, whether that's adding some additional images or adding some additional text. So what I'll do on this box down here is now add some text. So I'm going to want to make sure that I have his name. So I'll go there to add text. And again, I can either start from a text template or I can just add text here. So in this case, I'll add my text, and then I'll also add some additional text. So I'm going to want to give a description as well of who he is. And I might also want to add his date of birth. So I'm just going to get all this text in there that I want. All right. Now, one of the most awesome things, notice I'm dragging those up so they're all in that one box, about Adobe Spark is the ability here to use this style tool. So you can manually change the way that the text looks. That's fully customizable. You can go here, right, to color, and you can change the colors, however you'd like. It has a full color palette, right, that you can choose from with an eyedropper, all that kind of stuff. So really fully customizable there if you wanted to. And you can do things like add background shapes to, behind the text, stuff like that, text effects that are pretty cool, like these You can't see that quite well with that, but there's an outline tool. You can change the thickness. So you kind of get the idea that it's totally customizable. But what Adobe Spark has built into the program is actually kind of it's like a built-in graphic designer that I've heard people say basically like makes my graphic design degree kind of moot, right? Because now this program does it all for a person. So I definitely like showing students this tool, the style tool. And basically it's just going to show students what different styles of text and different color combinations would look like. So they can scroll through these and then find one. All right, that looks cool. And then they can still customize that. So it just kind of gives students a good starting place. So one of the things I just really like about the program is that it's so easy to make products that look really professional, and I think really encourages students to start to create, feel good about what they've created, because it's actually really hard to make something that doesn't kind of look cool. So you could continue to go through that whole process. If you wanted to make sure that these colors were matched, you could do that as well. You could check out the different suggested colors down here below. So really just a full wide array of choices for what you can do. All right, and then for this bottom box here, what I might also want to do is bring in an image that represents something about where this person who I am studying is originally from, something that pertains to his identity. So Tecumseh was a Shawnee chief who was, he lived in the southwestern region of Ohio. And so what I'm going to do here is look for a picture of Ohio, and I'll search for that here. And I'll go ahead and bring one in. Seems more like a pastoral image here. And I'll bring that one into the background there. And then you can also drag it and drop it. So if I wanted it to go somewhere else, I could drag and drop it down there as well. And then you'll see that you can also scale these. So if you wanted to move that around, you could do that. And then for the final part here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and add my adjectives that describe him. So one is brave, and then we'll also add here eloquent. So he was known for giving these really eloquent speeches. And then the last one I'll add here is compassionate. So this whole concept I also learned actually from Claudio Zavala as well, just using a graphic design to have students come up with a really concise visual with some text image that represents some concept about a person. So this could be a historical figure, but it could also be a literary character. So you could have an important quote from a book, then you could have them put a picture or a representation of that person, and then also come up with adjectives. So it gets students to think just a little bit differently about how they want to present the person that they've studied. And so obviously I'm probably not going to have this look like this. I want to play around with these little style tools and change that so that it looks the way that I want it to look. But ultimately, you see how you could use a project like this to have students communicate something in a visual medium about what they just learned. So this is a graphic with Adobe Spark, and these are also great for sharing, like I mentioned, on a class website, or you could have students do something like post these to Padlet. So the way that a student needs to do that, they can either go up here to download, or they can go up here to share. And this is definitely something that you're going to need to explicitly show students because oftentimes what they'll try to do is copy this link up top and share that with you, but that's going to take them into their Adobe account, or that would take you to their Adobe account if you tried to go there. So make sure you teach them how to either download it or to get the published link that they can share with you. Okay, so that was a graphic. Next, what I want to show you is how to make a video. So here, I'm going to show you a actual example of student work. So this is a video that a student made in Adobe Spark Post about the legacy of India. So it can be like a cumulative end of unit project. You can also have students make these to communicate something like a summary of a book that they read. And what I'm going to show you today is how to do a community building activity with Adobe Spark Post videos, where you have students basically communicate something that they learned about their family history. But I just want to show you this really quickly so you get an idea of what it could look like when a student makes a video. And one of the things that you'll notice about this one is that it only has still images. So that's kind of a cool aspect of Adobe Spark, is that students can bring in images and turn those into videos. And then they can also bring in actual videos and make those a part of the video that they create here. Okay, so here you can see that students can customize the text that comes over the top of an image. They can customize the image that comes into the background. They can choose some background music. So a lot of really cool things. And again, really easy to make this really professional, awesome looking video. Students absolutely love doing it. Want to show you another one here. So this is one that I created. It's a little bit closer to the assignment that I'm going to show you. And this is my own little version here of a family history video. And the reason why I want to show you this one is because it combines showing images with a video. So you'll see in the beginning that it's just the text coming over image, but then at the end, it also has some video incorporated in it as well. And that's just a way to make them look even more professional and creative and cool. So for this last part, all I did is bring in a video that I took on my iPhone. So I just downloaded the iPhone video onto my computer, and then I uploaded it into Adobe Spark Post. So it just has that kind of cool effect of mixing the images with the video. All right, so for this particular project, this lesson is a little bit different. This is more just a graphic organizer that can help you get prepared, or help students be prepared to create their video. So what students are essentially going to be doing for this project is going out and learning something about their family history. And this is kind of loosely adapted from a lesson plan from Facing History and Ourselves, which is an organization that develops really great resources for teaching students about history, but making connections to contemporary issues and looking at history through a social justice lens. This is, as I mentioned, an adaptation of an activity that they have students do, where they go learn about their family history and share that with other students. And so I think, we often think of community building activities as activities that we really just do at the beginning of the year, but doing something like this that's a little bit more time intensive, a little bit deeper, definitely requires much more kind of energy and thought than maybe a more traditional, just one-off community building activity. Can also be a way to build community, to get students to know each other a little bit better, to share something important about themselves. So great activity to do at this time of year, actually. And actually could be a good idea to do something like this around the holidays when students could actually go and learn some of that information from their family. So the idea here is that they're going to learn about their family's heritage, and that could look like a number of different things. They can go out, they can learn where their family's from, they can learn, maybe more about things like important stories that they would want to tell that are related to their family. They could talk about whether or not they identify with certain places. So some students have really strong connections with different locations or their aspects of places that their family's from that they, find very important for their identity. So all of these questions are really just essentially intended to prompt that kind of thinking so that students can create a family history video that's authentically going to represent something that's important to them about their family history. So the way that you create a video is by going up here again to the blue add button. And here you're going to go to video. So you can start here with giving it a name, and then you can prompt students to start from a template, which will essentially just create a video template for students, or you can start from scratch. I'm just going to go to start from scratch here. So it's really quite simple to make a video in Adobe. There aren't a ton of different options, but with a combination of the different slides that you can bring in and different formats, you can make a pretty cool looking video. So you'll see here that if you hit this add button, that's one way to essentially add new slides to the video. So the video basically works where you're going to have sequences of different slides that come in, and then they'll all fit together in a video. And then once you have a slide, you can go up here, you can change the layout that it's going to be formatted as. And it's going to be start right there with full screen. And then you can also click on the add button to add some different types of media. So here, for example, you can add some text. So I could say my family history. And then here, you could bring something in. So here I could bring in a picture, and same thing. I could go here to find free photos, and pretty much my entire family lives in California. So I can pull in an image of California here, and I'll pick this one here. And then you'll see that that's going to bring that into the background. So pretty straightforward. And then a couple things you can do here. So you see that it has a type of text. You can change that by going here to the theme. And these themes will also change the way that the text animates when it comes in to the video. A really cool one is this title theme. So this one has the text kind of like zoom in and out, which just looks really cool. But you can check out these other themes, and then there are also some different colors that you can choose from as well. So this is just a way to customize the way that the video looks a little bit. So I'll just choose the blue title theme here. Okay, now this little timer at the bottom is going to change the duration of time that the video will stay on this particular slide. So given that there's not a lot of information on this slide, I'm not asking people to read a lot. I probably don't want to have a long time. You don't want to have people sitting on a particular aspect for, like 10 seconds. So 4 seconds is actually pretty good. We can check it out and see what it looks like in a moment. So I'll go over here to the second slide. And here again, I could choose to add text. And you'll see that there's also an option to add icons. So these icons are, again, just kind of a way to mix it up. So you can see it's already going to read what I looked for before. It's going to pull up some icons. So here, there's one from California. So I could bring in something like this icon here from California. And then you can go to layout and you can choose something like a split screen. Again, just to mix it up, make it look more interesting. So on one side, it says California, and then, I could write my family is mostly from California. So essentially what you're doing is you're building these individual slides, and you can bring in images to the background. You can add text on top. You can bring in things like icons. And of course, like I showed, you can also bring in some different videos that you might have already created on your iPhone that you want to bring in from your computer. Now, another really cool aspect of these videos is that you can go up here to music. So you heard in the videos that I showed that they came with some background music. Students can actually bring in their own music files. If you do this, I would suggest that you talk about copyright, particularly if they're going to be published. You want to make sure that they have permission to access that music. Usually, students are going to be exempt from that if they're using it for educational purposes, but it's a good opportunity to bring in a conversation about digital citizenship. But it does also just have all these other types of musical tracks that you can bring in to the background of a video. So you can check them out. And then if you want it, you just click on it, and that adds that music to the background of your video here. So obviously this is not a fully comprehensive video, but you'll even be able to get a sense of what it looks like just with these two slides created. So here I'll go to the play button. And so essentially what I'm going to have students do is use those questions from the graphic organizer to essentially just continue to build out slides so that they're building a video. So again, just a really fun project for students. I recycle this project in different iterations throughout the year, and students always really like making videos in Adobe Spark. And I definitely recommend, if you make them, that you have students share them. So share them either, posting them on Padlet, posting them on your class website, some way so that they can showcase what they did. That's going to kind of increase their investment in wanting to do it. And especially if you tell them at the beginning, you're going to share this with everybody, they want to make them look unique and creative and interesting. All right. So the last thing that we're going to look at here is a web page project. Now, I don't have a full student example of a web page just because I don't have any that don't have names on them. But I'm going to show you a template that I made to show students how to make one. And if you watched my first live show about HyperDocs, I actually built that presentation in Adobe. So it's good to know, just actually as a teacher, you can also build lessons in Adobe, and you can even build a HyperDoc using an Adobe Spark web page, which I plan to make some content about later, but it's just a way that you can kind of mix stuff up. So yeah, I see a comment here. It's a great question about whether or not this is the same program that essentially allows you to scroll vertically. And it is. So you can see here that I'm scrolling vertically down through the presentation. And so they call this a web page, but in some ways it's not a web page. It's kind of like a presentation. It's not really a true web page, but they're very easy to set up, and they have just a really professional, clean look to them. So you can see here at the top that I've added some background images, and then down here at the bottom, I have brought in some other types of media. So this is a link to another video that a student created in Adobe Spark as well. And then you can obviously do things like bring in screen shots or different pictures and things like that. So for this particular project, what students did, this was actually an end of year project where students were showcasing their best work. So they had to make an argument in the first part of this web page about which 3 achievements they felt like were the most important from all the ancient civilizations that we had studied. And then for the second half, what they had to do was go choose some of their favorite projects throughout the whole year and include those as well as part of a showcase. So it's great for that purpose too, to have students showcase their work. And the way that I presented this information to them was just through a more traditional Google Slides hyperdoc here. And shout out to my partner teacher from last year, Amy Heckman, for collaborating on building this hyperdoc. So this is also linked in the description if you wanted to access this, as is the other family history graphic organizer. And so basically what I had students do here was prepare in this graphic organizer what they wanted to say about the most important achievements. And they had to come up with a claim with some evidence, some reasoning and explanation for each of those achievements. And then we had a whole process of having them go gather the different projects that they had done throughout the year. And that comes here toward the end. And then, of course, there are some instructions about what they need to include and how to do that in this hyperdoc as well. So to build a web page, you go up here to the Add button and click here on Web Page. And yeah, this is another great question. So this is a question, can you add tabs to the web page or links to the web page? So no, not in a traditional sense. You can add links out, but you can't add tabs in a way that you could with like a Google site. So that's why I say that it's not really a website builder in the way that other website builders work, right? So it's more of a presentation. They call it a web page, but it certainly should not be considered a website. But I will show you how to add an external link, which is how you could use it to build a hyperdoc if you wanted to do that. So similar to the video, one of the things that you can do here when you're making a web page is change the theme. So you'll see up here that there are a bunch of different options for different theme types that you can choose from. And that will kind of change the whole appearance of the web page. This is also definitely something you'll want to point out to students, because if you don't, they won't necessarily know that these exist, and they'll all come through with the same theme. So definitely worth showing them. All right, so I gave a history example, but just want to give a quick science example here. So you can use a project like this for all kinds of different explanatory, summative assessments where students have to explain what they just learned. So let's say that students have gone out, they've learned about plastic pollution. They could build a web page about that. So they could have their title here. They could write, by demo student, and then go down here to the Add button. And there they'll again be able to add some different types of media. So I'm just going to add a photo here, go to Find Free Photos, and here I'll look for plastic pollution and see what comes up. So I might want to choose something here like this bag, right, with plastic pollution. Okay, so you'll see that it's very easy, right, to just add an image below, but you may not want the image to look like that, right? You might want it to look a little bit differently. So you have some options here. You can choose to have it fill the entire screen, and then you can put a caption over here. So for example, a student might want to start with, what is plastic pollution? And then you'll see that it has this effect already that's kind of cool, where the image has this sort of zoom up effect. And then below, they can just continue to build that web page. So here, after creating this sort of title page, you might want to have them do something like a a glide show or a photo grid. I really like these glide shows. I use them a lot. The photo grids are cool too. The glide show works basically as a kind of collage that's all put together. So you will want to have different types of images here. So for example, let's just pull up some different images of plastic and put those in. So we can do something like a plastic bag. We can do some plastic, I don't know what that is there. So I thought that was plastic bottles. We could do some plastic bottles and maybe do another plastic bottle in nature there. And then maybe show one in context, plastic on a beach, right? Okay, so once I have all the pictures that I want for the glide show, I'll click save. And so you've probably seen this if you've seen other presentations that I've given in Adobe, because I use this a lot, where now you have the image and then you'll have this text caption sort of slide over the top of it like this. So a student could essentially be explaining, right, what plastic pollution is. So an example, right, would be plastic bags. So here a student could add text, change the way that they wanted the text to look, and modify it by doing things like centering it, etc. Right? So this is just a really easy way to show students how to make something that looks pretty creative and professional by using these glide shows. Now, there was a question in the chat about whether or not you can do things like add links. So you can do that as well. So if you go to the add button, what you would want to do if you wanted to add a link to, say, an external web page, you'd want to go here to the button function, and then you can choose what it's going to say on the button. So for example, maybe a student wants to link out to a website where they, are going to share more information about plastic bottles, or a source about learning about plastic bottles. They would then put the source here. Just going to make one up and then click save. And that's going to create this button here that they might want to have center aligned. And that will essentially serve as a link out to another web page. And then similarly, like I showed here, they can also just directly embed a video. So that option, they could do that here, right? Or they could do one, say, down here by adding a video, and that could be an embedded video that they bring in. So actually here, let's see, bring in, well, I'm going to bring in from YouTube, actually, a video that I have about this so that you can see, so that it's there. So I have a whole video about how to make one of these web pages kind of a while back here. This one, end of year showcase. So let's say you had a link like this.
If I don't want,
and you wanted to just directly embed that, put the link there, click save, and it's going to pop right up. So I love that function too. Then when people click on it, it's going to be right there. And then, I would show students how to do things like add headers, so they can still add some text over the top to explain what it's about. And center align it and all that. Okay, so this view right now is the edit view. Oh, and probably should add, let's add a background image here as well. Okay, so I just put a background image to, again, just kind of make it pop and look even better. So this is my edit view. It has all these different editing tools like in the middle and things like that. Obviously, that you don't want it to look like that. So when you're actually presenting it, you can preview it first, and then there's a present function and a share function. All of these will essentially present it or share it in its published form. So you can check it out here by going to preview. And once it loads, it's going to show us what it would look like when it doesn't have those editing tools. So notice, right, this took me practically no time to put this together. And look how really amazing it looks already, right? So we have our title, uh, prompting question, and then some details here to explain what plastic pollution is. So that took me, pretty much no time. And you can see how when students do invest a lot of time into a project like this, they look really awesome. They come out looking, like somebody said in the comments, very professional. Students are really proud of them. So it can be a really effective way to have students communicate something that they learned at the end of a unit. Like I mentioned, I like using it at the end of the year. But you could also do it to, just have something a little bit smaller, like say they were learning about plastic pollution and we're just communicating something that they learned. All right, so those were 3 different projects. Again, a graphic design project that you could do in Adobe. And I think these are great particularly for studying people. You can do video projects in Adobe, and those video projects can be used for all kinds of different purposes. I showed a family history graphic organizer that you can access and you can download in the video description. And then I also showed this graphic organizer about how to set students up to do something like make a web page. This is also in the video description if you wanted to access this and download it. So definitely highly recommend that you check out Adobe. And again, if you're having trouble accessing the pro version, the education version of Adobe, Canva EDU also has a lot of similar features. So don't let that be a barrier. You could check out another program like Canva, but I definitely recommend doing these types of projects with students. I think they can be used really at most grade levels, most subject areas, and they're highly engaging and definitely worth giving a try. All right, so I'm going to move over here for the end to just take some questions and go back. I know that there were a couple of questions that and comments and stuff like this. So great. Yeah, I definitely agree. These can be a great substitute for something like a slides presentation or a PowerPoint, which frankly you can get away, I think, with doing a couple times, but not that many times. Whereas these are definitely going to have a cool factor that a PowerPoint or Google slide doesn't have. And you might also be saying to use to teach with. I definitely agree. You could use it to present information as well. So great suggestion there. Okay, so this question is about whether or not you can embed a presentation into an LMS. You're probably Gisela, you're probably not going to be able to embed it in its full present mode, is my guess, just because of the way that it functions, where it essentially like pushes out and opens on your screen. So my guess is that you're likely only going to be able to put a link out to that presentation. So you just get the shareable link and then you could link out to it. Definitely that's the way that it works in Google Classroom. I'm not as familiar with some of the other LMSs that allow you to embed different programs, but my guess is you wouldn't be able to embed it in its full present mode. But don't hold me to that. if somebody knows differently, you can definitely put that in the comment. Yeah, this is Mallory. Yeah, I agree. I think this is more what I was talking about before, whereas I think the other comment was more about teaching with Adobe. But yeah, this is a great option as a substitute for something like a Google Slides presentation, and something that you could do if you've already started with something like Google Slides to do something similar, but mix it up, add some nuance, some creativity so that you're having students do something different, which I also just highly recommend as a way to keep students engaged and on their toes, bring something new in. All right. Well, sorry for some of the troll comments, but I appreciate all of the other comments and feedback and questions that have come through. And again, if you chose to join me tonight, I know that I had competition with the presidential debate, so I thank you for coming. And if you're watching the recorded version of this and you'd like to see um, a live show about a particular topic, definitely let me know because I'm trying to put together material that people are looking for, that people find helpful. And again, I have tutorials come out on my channel every Monday and Wednesday. And then I have this live show every Thursday at 6 o'clock. So, and that's Pacific Standard Time. So I hope to see you at the next show. And I hope everybody also has a great rest of your week.